Hi, good morning, everyone. Let's wait for a couple of minutes more. A few people are joining in. We can then start the session. Thanks. Gyati madam, we can start the session, right? All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Soham Shah. I am a certified fraud examiner, chartered accountant, and a company secretary. And I am currently a founder of Yellowstone Solutions, which is primarily a consulting firm into risk management and forensic advisory. I have experience of 7 years working into uh, investigations, forensic assignments, uh, anti-bribery, anti-corruption, asset tracing, all basically all sets of assignments pertaining to fraud investigations. Uh, uh, in this session, we are covering the third part of our series. Uh, I will shortly run past the other two sessions as well in case like someone is joining this session for the first time. So let's quickly move forward. So in this session, the topics which we are planning to cover are primarily forensic accounting and investigation standards. So first, we'll just take an overview of the 20 standards which have been kind of suggested by ICAI, and we will look into nitty-gritties of each and every standard, and I will try to kind of share at least my experiences from each of the standard from uh, personal experience standpoint. So this is the background for the session. Um, the objective which I've been telling every time that let's try to make it as engaging and as interactive as possible. Like the more questions, the more like everyone will get a chance to kind of resolve their doubts. It will just become a monologue from my side. So let's try to avoid that and make it as interactive and informative as possible. Uh, so quickly, I'll just give a recap of what we have covered in the two sessions. So the first session, we just talked about the basics, like what is, like what are the pillars of forensic accounting. It was more on evidence, the conclusive evidence and the evidence which is supported in the court of law, the objectives of forensics, scope of forensic accounting, the fraud triangle of pressure, opportunity, rationalization, discussed on the red flags, the early warning signals, and we got a chance to discuss on few recent fraud cases pertaining to PNB, ILFS, DHFL, and PMC. So that we had covered in the first session. Then the previous session, it is more on the series of planning to execution and closure of an assignment. So we tried to take a viewpoint on what are the different facets, challenges, ideal methodology of getting an assignment done. So we also try to kind of get a discussion on couple of case studies pertaining to the same. And for this session, our focus will be primarily on the forensic and investigation studies. But as I've been doing since the last two sessions, before we get into any kind of specific technical discussions on the standards, just kind of like few minutes if we can kind of discuss on one of the forensic matters. So like for the question for the day is materiality relevant in forensic assignments? If yes, how do we determine the same? So uh would appreciate if someone would want to kind of respond on this. Naveen ji, Santosh ji, Kanhaiya ji, anyone. Like the benefits of these sessions are that these are really like a small group session. So it's not at big 200, 300 people, where like there is any consciousness. Like the more we, like it will be more effective, like next couple of hours we'll be able to kind of utilize it more. Would appreciate if you guys step in. Like there are just 10, 15 of us.
I feel yes, materiality. Hi, so
Hi.
myself, Santosh.
Hi.
I feel like materiality is very much relevant for any forensic assignments. Basically, when we what basically materiality is like any major events which is happening in the organization, and based on that we determine that is materiality or not. And also it depends upon the uh, company's total turnover. Say example, if the turnover is of around 1,000 crores, and the materiality, if we say like if they are getting some order of kind of thing, or you know and this is my very brief idea because I am not very much aware of forensic audit. So so I think like when we determine the materiality, maybe it's like 1,000 crores turnover, then maybe 10% might not be materiality. Maybe it will be certain percentage of the turnover should be materiality. Otherwise, it will not make a sense to the complete organization. So this is how I determine.
All right. Anyone has an alternate viewpoint, uh, more than happy to kind of address it, or else I would want to respond to Santoshji. Any alternate viewpoint or agreeing with Santoshji? I think there is someone in the chat box. I feel yes, because we always do cost benefit analysis. Okay, all right. So I think Akshita is also aligning with the point of Santoshji. Okay. Uh, Anyone else want to chip in something on this topic? Okay. All right. So Santoshji and Akshita, specifically for you guys. So as you rightly mentioned in the example, so let's say there is a turnover of 1,000 crores. So like materiality, even if I put it as nominal as let's say 2%, then that also will be 20 crores. So now in this example, suppose if we come across an instance where uh, there is an employee fraud of let's say 1 crore, where some like an employee has tried to kind of pull that money out of the system through whatever mechanism. So then I think that falls significantly below the materiality threshold. So then whether that needs to be considered addressed, or will it go as an immaterial kind of a transaction, or like an immaterial amount according to
I think so. Management is because it's an employee is siphoning off some 1 crores of rupees. Once you have to identify and you have to bring something, a kind of rules which needs to be avoided. Otherwise, it will be like all employees will start doing that way.
you?
So
Yes.
something needs to be done on that part also.
Yes, yes. So basically, how, at least as far as from forensic standpoint is concerned, that even if there is a fraud of a single rupee, it will be considered material in case if it is a fraud, because the issue is not about the money, uh, like let's say even if it is a small amount of fraud, but the challenge is that in case if that is not taken into consideration, then you are possibly kind of looking at more bigger risks for the company, because it like basically it's on that mens rea concept, like if you have that attitude, like a fraudulent mindset, then like that immaterial or a smaller amount will not take time to kind of burst into bigger problem or a bigger issue for the company. So irrespective of the quantum, a fraud is a fraud, even if it's a 1 rupee fraud. Like that is how it is usually like considered as far as this forensic environment is concerned. Uh, any counters to this? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So that was just more as an icebreaker, like just like rather than getting into that groove of accounting standards for today. So let's move to the accounting standards part. So accounting standards, before we discuss the standards, these are the objectives. These objectives are something which are mentioned by the institute. So this is just an extract for you guys to just get some background, like why these standards were introduced. A bit of kind of self-explanatory. So to set basic quality benchmarks, set common terminology, clarification on expectation from the assignment, provide knowledge and guidance, codify best practices, harmonize and improve performance. This is standard. But I'm looking forward from you guys. So anyone of the participants is into banking sector, someone like either from the bank or kind of involved in the banking sector. Uh, Okay, because I wanted to share an experience pertaining to that. Because a lot of times when we used to submit, the forensic reports pertaining to NTA audits, so at that time, before the standardization, of these uh, uh, particular forensic, parlances, so there was a bit of an issue, like exactly if we comment something or if we don't comment, usually we would immediately be challenged, like what is the ground for this, like how, what is, like why you are considering this, why are you asking for this document, because this was more of the set practices. So like when I started my practice, so there were some set practices when I was working at BDO and Rand Thornton. So like like those things become an industry practice, but it was never, there was no base to refer. So something as an Ind AS. So like we have standards to like use as a reference point for any discussion or to quote it somewhere in the report, Ind AS standards on auditing. So these standards for us as a forensic professionals, these became kind of a standardization and a benchmark, and most importantly as a reference point to discuss someone or to something which can be backed either at the start of the engagement or at the closure of the engagement. So this is kind of ensured that there is synchronization, there is some like similarity or a base point for either of the parties or anyone who is involved into forensic assignments. So this is like the like practical comfort or uh, achievement of implementing this forensic accounting and investigation standards. Just as an overview, so the standards have been put into certain buckets, overarching documents, just the base framework, the principles, key concepts, engagement management before commencing, uh, engagement execution, specialized areas, something which is niche, data analysis, digital forensics, etc. And lastly, reporting results and quality control. So out of these, we'll be covering, primarily we'll try to cover up to 300, because there will be some lots of interesting discussions and conversations surrounding this. For certain standards, we will run past because that is more on the standard, maybe something which is a little bit similar to audits. We'll try to kind of, take it faster, and we'll focus on some unique standards, which is more inclined towards the forensic part. So, with this background, the standards, this is just for the reference, like what institute has given. If someone is having an expectation that what exactly, like the things are which have been given in the institute module. So this is a standard format: introduction, scope, objective, requirements, explanatory comments, documentation, and effective date. So this is a long-term goal. Currently, effective date for everyone is all the standards is 1st July 2023. Basic principles, attribute based and conduct based. This is the standard, like nothing more of an explanation based thing, more of independence, integrity, due professional care, confidentiality, skills and competence. So again, on conduct, like truth, rights, and obligations. This one specifically separating facts from opinions. Now, this is something which will differentiate, like forensics from the standard accounting, standard auditing procedures rather. This thing will get covered in multiple standards as one of the key important elements that whenever we are doing this, this is not going to be opinion based. It will primarily be more of a fact finding exercise, because if you give opinion, specifically when we'll be having like issues pertaining to agencies, discussions with the agencies, so if you start giving opinions over there, trust me, we'll be having a bad time, like really challenging and tough time if we start giving opinions. So yes, let's start with the first part of the series now. Key concepts, where we'll be discussing on certain terms, like exactly what are the nature of assignments in forensics, what are fraud risks, rules, regulations, laws, and hypotheses. So let's start. The first one. So the nature of engagement. What I've done is for each standard, I've broadly tried to break it into three parts. What is in simple terms, everything is with reference to, like the recommendations or implementation guide of ICAI. So like if you are having any expectation that, whether it's aligned, so everything is coming from there. So objective, procedures and explanation, and I'll try to give like some relevant example through which we can kind of get this thing implemented. So this is my standard format which we are going to run past for these standards. So moving to the first one, so nature of engagement. So over here in simple terms, the engagement needs to be classified, whether it's a forensic accounting engagement, an investigation, or a litigation support engagement. So these are just again, as I had mentioned, so like just to kind of bucket it from that larger picture, they've put it into three buckets, and they've tried to give an explanation that how each one will be falling under, like what will be the base and rationale. So over here, what the institute is trying, like first and foremost in the first standard itself, that uh, please do not mix it with audit. And a lot of times we use the word, including us, we use the word as forensic audit. So what they're saying is that try to avoid using the word audit, because the moment you are saying audit, you tend to give an opinion, which is not the case, and it tends to get used interchangeably with the audit and create confusion. So it should be termed as forensic accounting and not forensic audit. So that is the like literally the first paragraph of the specific standard. So where the mandate requires application of accounting skills, then it's forensic accounting. And where you need to evaluate evidence to establish a fraudulent intent, it will be an investigation. And where these assignments need to be submitted to the court of law for giving a testimony, like having a cross examination, etc., then it becomes a litigation support engagement. The objective is that like basis the examples and the techniques given in the standard, try to like bifurcate and bucket it, kind of define it under a particular nature of engagement, and accordingly, based on this, they have given certain examples over here. All right. So what I have done over here is that out of those examples, I've handpicked few examples. So what I expect is that each one, like like let's say over here in the first one, evaluation of internal controls and strengthen processes and mitigate risks. So according to you, is this a forensic investigation, litigation, or maybe another mandate? So if you guys can like chip in with like possible answers for these five, I can then put it like display it on the right. Evaluation of internal controls, strengthen processes, and mitigate risks. So according to this nature of engagement, does it got anything to do with forensics, or it appears to be something else?
Then forensic accounting only.
Now the first one.
Yes.
Okay. Can we move all the five? Like, can you attempt, or like, if anyone else, I because then I'll list all the like answers together. Okay, so noted. So first one you are mentioning about forensic. Okay, all right. Okay. So for the second one, yeah, evaluation of efficiency and effectiveness of an organization's operations and identifying opportunities for improvement. So,
Again,
like,
forensic accounting.
okay, all right. It need not necessarily be forensic investigation because we are trying to assess, whether it's a forensic investigation litigation or maybe an internal stat, etc., etc. So,
Acha, okay, okay.
yes,
I got it.
yes, yes, yes. So, just like that's what the objective is of the standard, that, like the professional should bifurcate into the correct bucket, like, so, yeah. All right. For the third one as well, to analyze the production records indicating high wastage to confirm or deny the possibility of inventory pilferage.
It's an internal control, like
Okay. A review into certain whistleblower complaints against the procurement head.
it's an investigation.
Okay.
Investigation.
Yes. And the last one, to analyze financial records and provide testimony in a lawsuit involving a breach of contract.
It's a litigation.
Yes. In case if someone is not comfortable to speak up as well, can please use the chat box, and like from 1 to 5, you can give the suggestions. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, that is yes. Oh, acha, okay. Akshita is typing. At least exactly, like even if for yourself, not then, like if like people are giving their opinions, others will kind of be able to correlate. So Navinji is saying no, 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 yes, yes. So you're talking about forensic, yes or no? Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay. So the first one is internal audit. Second one is performance audit. Third is forensic accounting, investigation, and then uh, litigation support. So Santosh ji was somewhere right. I think Naveen ji, at least in terms of forensic or not, I think except for the third, I think yeah, he almost got it right. So here, so exactly, so this is what I, through this example, what I'm trying to tell is that this is what the expectation from the standard is. That like based on the mandate, try to bifurcate. Like don't interchange something. Like someone is talking about effectiveness. It was on the performance, but sometimes there are unknown rumors going around that यहाँ पे तो कुछ फ्रॉड का शक है कंपनी ने फॉर सब इन्वेस्टिगेशन चालू करवा दिया है. So like we have experienced this multiple times. Genuinely, the objective is not anything to do with fraud, but since the documents are asked in a particular way, the employees a lot of times tend to get uncomfortable. Like this is not part of statutory or internal, so maybe there is some issue here. So just an objective to kind of bring some standardization. That was the first standard. Any queries or something, or else we can hop to the next standard. Okay, all right. Just in case if you want to, get a list of, like mandates which can happen through forensic, or investigation or litigation, you can refer that detailed list. Like you will get it in the institute's standards. So they have listed that example. So whenever you come across something, you can keep that handy as a reference point for you guys. So that was the first one. Second is FAIS 120. So again, so as I mentioned, so these first 4 or 5 standards has got to do a more with some terminologies and some backgrounds, like setting the base before any execution. So again, over here, they have defined fraud, they have defined risk, and then based on that they have merged into developed the concept of fraud risk. So to elaborate, so I'm not going into this definitions, like that will become a bit like you might have heard read, like as per Indian Contract Act, this is the definition of fraud, Companies Act says this, that. So I'm not getting into all that. Just we all know like what is a broadly, what falls under fraud. So keeping those things as a background, so fraud risk, there is an interesting explanation provided. So risk, what they have done is they have put it into two variables, impact and probability. And to determine, like whether high fraud risk, medium or low fraud risk, that they basically they have tried to quantify it into like impact and probability. So impact is, let's say I have got some issues in, let's say, sales amounting to 100 rupees, and the probability of this being a suspicious transaction, or like a fraudulent transaction, is, let's say, 15%. So combination of 15% and that value compared to the larger, like let's say the turnover for the month or the year, those elements can be combined, subject to the parameters which the company wants to implement or the auditor wants to implement, and fraud risk can be determined. So what institute is telling, that you can use the variables of impact and probability over here. So basically, yes, with respect to qualitative and quantitative factors. And for the fraud risks, another aspect which we need to consider is that it should not be restricted to only our books of accounts. So a lot of times we have seen this not just as a forensic audit, but even for the normal auditors, that we tend to look around, seeing the whistleblower registers, any kind of complaints by the customers or vendors or something, or some kind of big GST notices being circulated, or like sometimes the company is running smooth and fine, but the promoter has been kind of raided by enforcement director on money laundering, etc., etc. So those are the risks which, if not today, but like if there are issues with the promoter, then maybe in near future there can be a threat to the company. So the elements can be considered accordingly, and as we do it, we can bifurcate as high, medium, and low. So some fraud risks, early warning signals, again, which are a recommendatory out of the many by ICAI. So frequent complaints from customers and suppliers. So if you guys want to chip in, what we can do over here is, at least not for all six, but at least for two or three, you can, in case if you see this fraud risk, like frequent complaints from customers and suppliers, what would be the steps which you would try to take to kind of evaluate whether there is significant fraud risk or it can be mitigated or not? Like what would be the line of action, if you see this element of frequent complaints from customers and suppliers? Anyone? To elaborate, in case if my question is not clear, yeah, I think it's the nature of complaint. Okay. Naveen ji, would really appreciate, if you can, uh, like kind of elaborate it. It will be a good discussion. So the nature of complaint, what you would do, like maybe a hypothetical scenario you can create and explain, and we can kind of brainstorm over it together.
Somji?
Hi, hi, hi.
Right. So without knowing the nature of complaint, we cannot get into it.
Yes.
So which area, which point, so
Mm-hmm.
that is very important. And if complaint is of same repeated nature,
Yes.
then only you can focus on that.
Yes, correct. All right. So let's say we are getting, that repeated complaints that The customer is complaining, let's say in this case, vendor is complaining that your purchase manager, your company is of big repute, but of lately I'm seeing purchase manager is asking for unnecessary favors, and it's creating inconvenience amongst few of your decade old vendors. So like something like those kind of, where like they
Uh,
have quantified anything. So then what would be our approach in such scenarios, according to you? I mean,
no, first of all, it's a both side story. Sometimes vendor also complain unnecessarily. It's like if the purchaser or the procurement manager whatsoever, he's supposed to be too honest and
right.
procuring in the best interest of the company. Some
Hmm.
people are getting hurt, so sometimes false complaints also come. So
Absolutely.
we need to judge. We need to judge. There is no as a parameter over there, but yes, many parameters are that price, quality, quantity, and those things. So it's a very dicey thing to decide. It's both side story.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Because anyways, we are calling this as early warning signals or kind of indicators. So the objective is to evaluate and assess and not to conclude. So as rightly mentioned, so keeping that open mindset is of utmost important. Important, that we are not getting biased towards anything. Let's say a company, a management is appointing us. So as a consulting or as a consultant, the objective is not to kind of create unnecessary evidences or become biased at see, like this thing was there, definitely there is an issue or something, but like evaluate with an open mindset and try to give like submit all the relevant facts for the management to take an opinion. So yes, awesome. All right. So yeah, so that was about like a kind of an indicator for complaints from customers and suppliers. Low moral and motivation among employees. So this is more of like employee is not motivated. So like we had discussed this in the first session. So like in terms of fraud triangle. So this goes under kind of a rationalization of like fraud. So employee is saying that I deserve, let's say, 20 lakh rupees. The firm is not even paying 15 lakhs. I'm anyways doing too much for this firm. So, what's wrong if I kind of, pull out some 20, 30,000 or two, like 1 or 2 lakhs here and there. So I don't think that's a fraud. Anyways, it's kind of company, like I'm just taking indirect compensation from the company. Like a typical example of rationalization. Although an employee may feel like that, but effectively, if someone is pulling 1 lakh out of the company, they are defrauding the company by 1 lakh rupees. So, like whenever there are some demotivated employees, it becomes an early warning signal for the company. Understaffed accounting department. Anyone? If there is, I have an understaffed. Let's assume that it's a reasonably sized company. So, like I'm understaffed. What's the risk here?
Less checking,
Sorry, I just checked.
less checking by the
Just
depart
checked.
accounts.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So they know the system where checking is done, not done.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. And yes. Before I chip in, anyone else? Naveen ji, you want to add anything?
Timely recording of transactions do not happen.
I sorry, I missed you.
Timely recording of transactions do not happen. So there is a scope for, getting entries later on so that they can manipulate the accounts.
Yes, absolutely. Akshita is mentioning no
Someone who is
segregation.
not in account department, someone who is not having an accounting experience and doing an accounting work.
Mm, True, true. Absolutely. And there will be, like interchangeable of duty. So I am, let's say, into purchases and there is an issue, pertaining to passing of, let's say, entries into accounting. So if there are less people, my boss will tell, okay, please pass entries. And even if there is a bandwidth of few days, I have an opportunity to kind of, capitalize and perform some, I'll say, kind of an unwanted transaction or a fraudulent transaction during that period. So yeah, that's the issue basically when there is an understaffed accounting department. Rajkumar sir is over here. Hi, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Soham. Good morning, all friends. Apart from Soham and myself, I see 9 of us are there: Naveen, Akshita, Vijay, Krishnadev, Chandrasekhar, Jyoti Lakshmi, Santosh, Swapnil. Any query if you wish to develop more knowledge on forensic, developing the professional work, or becoming expert in an organization, because Soham and myself, we are here to be mastermind to excel your skill. So please unmute and ask if there are any query.
Sure, sir.
Sir, this is Vijay. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Naveen, go ahead.
No. Sure. What you suggested, guided, we will try to do as much as possible.
Yeah, nahi, each one of us, we should find out our passion.
Yes.
Passion is one, where we don't look at watch. There is a book of Simon Sinek. Start with why, WHY, what we like. So I'm like forensic. So he's, early morning, 10 o'clock, he takes sessions. So each one of us, and that answer can be given only by the self, cannot be given by anybody else. So you in every session keep on discussing how to get the work, what is the world size in the forensic market, which are the courses which one can do.
Yes.
Like you have done CFE, there is a course of digital accounting and assurance board, DAB, who has
Yes.
come out with this FIRES, which is discussing there are 20 forensic accounting and investigation standards,
Yes.
and they are divided into 6 series: 100 series, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600.
Yes.
Any other member want to ask anything? Because this is more of a session where we can ask questions and we can ask our doubt
Yes.
uh,
So,
beside learning.
I was
No,
also
Soham
insisting
want to
you.
be a mastermind. Myself want to be a mastermind, each one of you, in your learning. In the,
Sir,
yes,
yeah. Can there be a checklist to visualize the possible errors in accounting, what can go wrong, and devise the system in place so that accounts, whatever is published, that becomes foolproof?
Soham, will you answer this?
Yes, yes. Vijay ji, so this part, at one point we will be covering in certain standards as well, as we progress during the session.
Ji.
But one thing I will definitely mention that will only be a reference point because specifically, like whenever there are fraud indicators, so even if I give you, let's say 50 or 100, there is a very much likelihood that you will encounter 101st.
Ji.
So like that will be like a very, very basic, like a reference checkpoint. But definitely we'll be having a discussion as well. And even after that, you feel that something more elaborated and specific can be, required, do reach out to me. I will share a separate list as well with you.
Okay, sir.
What usually we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Anyone? Any questions for Rajkumar sir specifically? Is your
Sir, another suggestion is that this may not be the right forum, but since this is a knowledge sharing forum, I would suggest that this audit trail, since last year was the first year of implementation, that is becoming an issue because considering the pervasive scope, it is not only limited to the correctness in passing the keeping the details of passing the JV, but certainly its coverage includes that database, which is becoming a costlier affair. So I think I would suggest that on audit trail, we should have a detailed session.
Yeah, we will have, Vijay, we will have the session on audit trail. I'll plan out anything else. Any other member want to say anything, have any query? Okay, Soham, please carry on.
okay? Sure. Thank you, sir, for your time. Thank you. Okay. So yes, so we were, let's get back on the discussion pertaining to red flags. So yeah, so as mentioned, for the understaffed accounting department, so these would be the reasons, like even if I am understaffed, someone is on leave and there is no alternate for 1 week in accounting department, easily you are leaving it open, and God forward someone is actually looking for such opportunity, or there is a pattern that every time during Diwali 15 days my accounts person will not be there or something like that. That's a genuine risk, like whether a fraud is happening or not. Company is opening the doors for the fraudsters to like happen to such scenarios. Employee with sudden shift in lifestyle. You see suddenly someone, not with a great family background, earning hardly like 50, 60,000 rupees a month, and you see him buying, like big cars, suddenly, like lavish lifestyles, expensive, like 1 lakh, 2 lakh rupees phones. You as a consultant or as a top management of the company, you can definitely uh, kind of introspect into this. Inconsistent and surprising cash flow deficiencies, and lastly, infighting among the top management. So specifically for this, so whenever this we see, as a leadership session, or we might have heard, like if there is an issue at the top, the bottom will always take some or the other advantage out of it. So a bit of self-explanatory. So like whenever we sense such scenarios, it's a fraud, it's an indicator, and it's better that that specific element or aspect gets further investigated. So that was a background on FIS 120. So third is with respect to laws and regulations. Uh, as an objective, okay, like have basic understanding of laws and get adequately make sure that it's complied, etc., etc. But over here, uh, what I am keen to discuss with you guys is that just for a bucket, it can be broadly bifurcated into two parts: direct impact laws and engagement specific laws. Uh, if you read the third line, the standard is classified into two classes: direct impact laws and engagement specific laws. Direct impact laws are an integral part of most engagements since they are broad in nature, blah blah blah. So, what do you understand? Like, if you have read it earlier or from this line, what is your interpretation on direct impact laws and engagement specific laws? Anyone? Or is it little technical? Okay, all right. So basically, direct impact laws has got all, where it has got something to do with rule of court, rule of evidence, or something which is like a blanket thing which is applicable everywhere. So something like, like in this one I have mentioned about Evidence Act. So irrespective of, whatever assignment you're doing, forensic, accounting, investigation, anything into disputes and testimonies, in either of the cases, evidence will form a kind of a base. Something, another, if I mention, is about something on civil procedure or Indian Penal Code. So now these are kind of provisions, whatever you do, like those laws will be implemented. And something like specific clauses, there is an issue with respect to any company misutilizing funds. So that is something which is specific to Companies Act. So standard has kind of again bifurcated and defined it so that this standard can be used as a reference point for all the stakeholders pertaining to this. So again, Institute, what they have done is they have given some listing. So this is around 20 odd different sections, which laws will be applicable in some or the other assignments. So something like, as I mentioned, about evidence, corruption, contract act, penal code, information technology, one of the hearts, because we will be having digital forensics. Specifically in the investigation and arbitration assignments. So, like the terms and the context of information technology will be applicable everywhere. PMLA, whenever there are matters on enforcement director, PMLA will come into picture. Anti-bribery, anti-corruption, UK Bribery Act will be coming into picture, so on and so forth. So these are like, just a flavor, because a lot of times this is something which is asked by a lot of people, that, like, we talk about fraud and this and that, but uh, what would be, like, what are the kind of laws which comes into picture? So usually people only restrict to Companies Act and maybe say Security and Exchange, basically the SEBI Act, and, like, they'll name two or three. So this just gives us a bit of a larger purview on laws and regulations. So that's about it. Applying hypothesis, the 140 IFAIs. So this is somewhere where I'm keen to spend some time with you guys, because this is a very helpful technique. So if we kind of plan and do our engagements diligently, this is something which can be used by a lot of us. So over here amongst us, just for me to get a sense, so out of you guys, how many are, like, into consulting or an auditor or someone as a consultant, or how many are into uh, industry or working for a company? Because that will, like, I can kind of put my conversations for, the relevant set over here, because hypothesis from a consultant, from a forensic reviewer, it will be completely different, and an internal investigations team of the company, the approach will be completely different. So if not comfortable, at least if you can put it on chat box, that will be helpful. Industry, okay. Others, are you guys there? I just want to add one more thing. So there is, for this session, there is no CPRs, there is no mandatory corporate training. You guys are here because you guys want to kind of explore into this. So everyone is here by choice. So if there is hesitance, I understand, like putting it on mic and speaking or anything, but at least you can use the chat box, right? I mean, I really appreciate. I'll wait for few more seconds and then I'll start with it. I'll assume everyone is okay, from industry and from logistics. So broadly, I'm assuming everyone is from industry only. There is no one from the consulting side. So let me put my case accordingly then. All right. Okay. So objective of hypothesis is basically it's more on that prototypes. We have used as iterative prototype. So it is provisional unproven theory, develop and apply, and just as I mentioned that the objective is to make this exercise of fraud review and investigation little more effective. So, like, try to define a case, try to understand what the situation is. For that situation, what will be, list of, like cases possible, like let's say there is an issue pertaining to uh, procurement fraud. So now for that fraud to happen, what will be the possible scenarios? Let's say purchase manager is involved, or maybe my vendors are colluded, or let's say I am manipulating with the inventories which are procured, or the quality is an issue. So if there is an issue, like a mandate on procurement fraud, what would be the different types of hypotheses which are possible? And once that part is covered, we can try to work out on the solutions. All right. Validate the possibility of potential violations, and then prove whether it's the hypothesis is proven, basically that fraud is there, is not proven, or it is disproved. So basically, not proved is in a situation where there is a data limitation, that data is not there. So that will not be a proven or not proven or disproven. So it will be not proven case. And hypothesis obviously can be flexible, evolving, and as and when the assignment progresses, it can be amended. Again, this gets theoretical. So this is just a theoretical for every standard as I've mentioned. So let's go with an example. This was one example which I could think of. Over here, I've taken a specific example as recommended by ICAI. So, borrower's account at a particular bank has become NPA. Now, check if there are any irregularities with regard to misrepresentation or manipulation in the books of account. So, basically, diversion, manipulation, misrepresentation, etc. So that would be when I have access to the books of accounts of that target, the borrower, who has become an NPA. So with this background, so what I'm going to do is, as a someone from the industry who is into bank in this case, so he will now review the books of accounts of the target entity. So what we'll do is we'll put into three parts: hypothesis, the work procedure which can be performed for that hypothesis, and the outcome. So the first case, the promoters and directors could have potentially, so over here, try to use this language in your personal cases if you come across. Promoters and directors could have potentially misused the funds for personal purposes or purposes other than those for which funds were granted. So over here, they are saying that the borrowers, basically, the promoters and directors would have themselves eaten off, like kind of siphoned these money for their personal consumption. So review of loan documentation, agreement copies, negative covenants, and details submitted to avail the funds. So this is obviously, one of the many purposes here, but this is just for the example purpose. So for this hypothesis also, we can perform another 5 procedures, and then for each procedure, we can kind of document, whether it is proved or not. So in this case, let's say, letter of credit facility exploited for intergroup companies and related parties to book fictitious sales. So it's everything fake over here, and that money has been kind of siphoned off by promoters themselves. So, this hypothesis is proved that they could have misutilized. So over here, two things to understand. One is, what is the thought process, of forensic assignments, and second, that how we can use this standard as a reference and apply hypothesis for our internal assignments within the company or for the consultant. So as the people who are working in industry, so if there are some other cases, usually the company people trying to do it, close it by themselves. But in case of the commitments or the fraud amounts or the amount at stake are significantly higher than a consultant appointed, then these parameters you can evaluate to make sure that the consultant is doing the job correctly and properly or not. So this is the approach. Second, we'll take the 2-3 examples just to get a bit of more insights on this. So covenants in the loan agreement could have been violated, such as diverting the inflow of funds to other accounts other than specified escrow account. In case if there is a disconnect, someone from that completely non-banking side. So basically, whenever uh, these loans and everything is initiated, and whenever there are certain terms in the agreement, then the funds needs to be utilized through escrow account. I cannot move these funds to other accounts. But a lot of times, the perpetrators try to manipulate the escrow accounts are not correctly monitored, and the funds are diverted. So those cases, if just it is not use of escrow account, then that is just a red flag. Okay, and maybe a non-compliance. That's not a fraud. But with this situation, if introspected further, we can see a case of maybe a diversion or misuse of funds. So over here, in case if we come across such scenario, review other bank account statements and verify, whether this is an issue of diversion or it's just a non-compliance. All right. But over here, when the review was done, there was no such kind of scenario identified in the other account. So hence not true, because the other bank account statements were not available. There could be errors or irregularities in the documentation. If there could be errors, then review the document submitted and disproved because documentation was in line with the actual position and affairs of the borrower. So as I mentioned, this is just kind of for an example basis, that what is proved, what is not proved, what is disproved. And these formats are something which you guys can consider as a internal documentation when you are performing such as a kind of procedures, because personally I feel this is a very good documentation, whether it is the account is declared as fraud or not. But the work procedures tend to get nicely documented with our rationale and thesis and everything. So yeah, so that's about FAIS 140 on hypothesis. Anyone, any questions or something, any doubts?
So, sir, point number two, where we are saying there is other bank account statement we have to cross check. So, say here we are saying it was not available. So, as a forensic accounting assignment, we have to go through in deeper, like go and check with the banks whether they have opened. Say, example, the company has a bank account with State Bank of India, and they have
Yes.
siphoned this money to, say, example, HDFC Bank. And when the transaction happens, they open the account, and maybe in a month's time or 2 months' time, they close it down. So how we can identify the such things?
Yes, sure. All right. So in this, how it works is, so most of the times, whenever there are some big ticket accounts, so over there, the consortium of bank will come together. So over there, this issue of bank statements not available will not arise. However, in case where there are some mid-size accounts where, let's say, I have a company, a decent size company, like a decent company, but not like a huge company. So let's say I am taking a loan from Punjab National Bank, right? There I will be having an agreement, I will maintain escrow account, this, that, etc. But along with Punjab National Bank, let's say I am having another account in Bank of Baroda as well. So over here, there is a possibility that I have my operations with Bank of Baroda, which are decent and fine. But with Punjab National Bank, my account turns into NPA for whatsoever reasons. So now, if Punjab National Bank wants to kind of introspect this, then there is a likelihood that the statement of Bank of Baroda will not be available. So I can, send notices to the borrower. I can, like follow up and create my documentation. But there is, in all likelihood, possible that the Bank of Baroda statements will not be provided to me. So rather, Bank of Baroda will themselves directly not provide in terms of confidentiality, etc. And the borrower might also not provide. So in such scenarios, this can happen. But wherever there are consortium, then this issue does not arise.
Okay, got it.
Yes. Does this get resolved? The
Yeah,
query?
but my more concern was like, is it possible to go and find, like he say, that's just the example I've taken. HDFC Bank, I've done the transaction and I
Hmm.
closed down my account,
Hmm.
and I am not showing anywhere that I was, I was having an HDFC Bank account. But but yes, the transaction when I did, from say
That will
example,
not be
my
possible, right? Because your PAN number, even if you don't show, your PAN number will definitely show, right?
correct.
So that will
Got it.
not be possible. And
Hmm.
banks also have those softwares, right? So on the CIBIL scores and everything. So
They come to me.
whatever bank accounts and all a customer has, so they have easy access to kind of view those things. So those basic things will be taken. So no one can escape that. But
But this is for
sometimes,
bank. Bank, it's easier, sir. For bank, we have taken the bank's example and case. For
yes.
that, it is very easy to extract the information. But for some other company who are into manufacturing or who are in trading business, for them, it might be a challenge, isn't that?
Yes, absolutely. But then they will not have the issue of advancement of loans, right? Over here, I have advanced loans, so I have a lot of risk. Like there is hard money which I'm advancing. So in the
Hmm.
investigation, so in case if you can take maybe a minute, and if you give me whatever case comes in your mind, maybe something related to your industry, then I will try to give a suitable approach or a procedure or a hypothesis for yours. So maybe like that will kind of help us bridge, as all of us on this session today will be able to bridge that gap. So like if you can do that, nothing like it, like you can give example of your industry itself, like whatever case.
Say take an example of manufacturing industry. Okay,
Okay, perfect.
I've bought a machinery.
Okay.
I've taken a loan from a bank.
Okay.
Okay, I've taken 10 crores of loan, and
Hmm.
that 10 crores of loan, I've what I don't buy machinery. Machinery might be costing around 2 crores to 3 crores.
Okay.
8 crores I might be used for my personal use. Now that
Hmm.
8 crore I have to take out. So what I'll do, I'll create some
Hmm.
fictitious bill saying
Perfect.
that for
Yes.
something
Yes.
kind of trading or something, any kind of bill where I can start creating that 8 crores needs to be removed from my company's account. So
Hmm.
isn't that of as a forensic auditor, isn't it will be a challenge to know whether that 8 crore has been taken out?
Yes, okay, perfect, perfect. So here I will try to answer from both the scenarios. Like as a banker, let's put it, let's simplify it. Like in this case, how a banker, uh, uh, so
Hmm.
how a banker will be able to trace. Will that will answer your question, right?
Correct.
Okay. So firstly, if I'm a banker and if you are asking me a loan of 2 crore for purchasing a machinery, so in that case, I will be issuing you a not a working capital loan, but a fixed asset loan, right?
Capex loan.
So capex loan, yes. So whenever like the capex or a fixed asset loan is disbursed, then most of the times you have to submit the documents, and that loan is disbursed directly to the vendor. So in most of the scenarios, the bank will not pay to the borrower, but to the ultimate vendor from whom you want to purchase that asset. Specifically,
Okay.
when there are
Hmm.
this specific, like 2 crore equipment or something. So firstly, this is how the transaction will be secure. But still, your question holds valid. That what if that vendor is yours only and it's a fictitious,
Hmm.
correct? So now how to? So firstly, whenever these exercises are undertaken, the bankers will conduct a field visit for each and every asset. So before disbursing the loan, they will go and verify, where this asset needs to be purchased, whether this purchase makes sense or not, etc., etc. Again, let us assume that you have created all that fictitious thing, or you have colluded, whatever, and even after that, the loan is disbursed. Definitely possible. So now the first step over here, there is definitely a negligence from the banker. But what now? Like there was a negligence and the loan is disbursed. How will you prove that this was a fraud or not? Because after that, once even after the loan is disbursed, There are periodical visits, and they actually happen. It's not just they have to document, with those photos and everything. So periodically, there are maybe once in 6 months or once a year, these visits are undertaken and photos are clicked, like this is the fixed asset that exists today, physical verification, etc., etc. So in case if there is no fixed asset purchased, then somewhere or the other it will get highlighted.
Okay. Okay.
And as an auditor, as a forensic investigation accounting professional, what can be done is that we do a simple background check of that vendor. So you are the borrower in this case. So we will try to establish a relationship between, the borrower, the relatives of the borrower, vendor, and the connected entities of the vendor. We call it L1, L2, L3 checks, and we try to see, if any relationship can be established. Apart from that, as a borrower, at the time of taking the loan, you would have submitted, your uh, current account or transaction account pertaining to this bank. So we will be able to trace all the transactions in that account as well. As a banker, we will be able to trace that transactions as well. So in case you have kind of, that having transactions with that vendor, or like anything coming in and around, in case if it is coming, it's fine. If not, then the other parameters will also be taken into consideration.
Okay.
So these are few techniques through which it can be ensured, even if by error it has been disbursed. But if I don't see an asset there, it will be coming to the notice of the banker, and in case you have diverted the money, something like that, then relationship can also be determined. You can tap.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
I'll just try to still give a broad overview. You tap into it, and I can give further, like how that can be done. So let me know.
I have very valid case I have, but I can't tell you right now. Maybe later on I'll definitely get.
Okay,
Discuss
sure,
on that
sure.
now.
More than happy to connect to you offline. We can like, in case if you have come across something, more than happy to have a discussion on that. All right.
Sure, sir.
So basically,
Thank you.
these are some ways and methods, like an hypothesis. This is how it will be helpful. Like if we can create some hypothesis, it can be documented and reviewed nicely. So yeah. So this was broad level discussions on the key concepts. Now let's move to the second part, the 200 series. So this has got more to do with how the engagement, what are the engagement objectives, how it can be, like the engagement letters can be taken care of, experts. I am very much interested in having a detailed discussion on engaging with agencies, because this is something which I'm pretty sure very limited people would have, heard how certain forensic assignments work. So we'll spend some time over there. And just to give a heads up, so I think in realistic terms, we'll not be able to complete all the standards today. So what we'll do is we'll try to cover everything up to 300 and 400, 500, 600. Basically, this 5 standards, we can take it up in the next session. So let's try to cover 200 and 300, and kind of have some more interesting discussions surrounding this. So let's move to 210, engagement objectives. So this is a bit in line with 110, where we talked, the first standard, accounting, engagement, forensic accounting, investigation, litigation support. So they are saying that basis that what you have identified, now make your engagement letter and everything pertinent to that, communicate to your stakeholders that this is the assignment which you are commencing, it's an investigation assignment, etc., etc. So this is the broad level crux what they are trying to say in the standard, and followed by over here, like indicative list of examples to determine the engagement objectives. So uh, again, like read this with 110. Identify the purpose of the engagement, stakeholders involved, context, goals and outcomes, and communicate the purpose of the engagement. A bit of just a background. This can be helpful again based on the example. So in terms of forensic accounting, services can be financial statement manipulation, diversion, anti-money laundering, related party transactions, issues in valuations, etc., and IBC. Investigation broadly on whistleblower, code of conduct, ABAC, and some part of digital forensics gets covered. And for litigation, primarily it is testimony before competent authority. We will get into this. There is a specific standard on this uh, testimony for the competent authority, so it will get covered. So this is broad level, how the objectives can be, evaluated and implemented for the engagement. So FAIS 220. Uh, so now this states that uh, you need to perform due diligence before accepting. So let's say you are doing an investigation for a company. So these are quite sensitive matters, and sometimes as a consultant professional, we tend to kind of get unnecessary into complications, because you are told that you are doing an investigation assignment, but a lot of times companies use that as a preventive approach. So they will not get document everything with you, and then halfway they might settle your dues and they will say, okay, thank you, we will take it further, and etc., etc. So your services and your skill sets can be misutilized if not you know like you have not taken appropriate due diligence and appropriate care on that. So based on that, so that's the second point. Document key terms of the engagement, so that you are ensuring that what is the purpose and scope of the assignment. So obtain sufficient information, independence checks. So most of the scenarios, if you are the statutory auditor, you are not allowed to provide any other services. That includes the forensic services as well. So make sure that that independence is other too. Trust me, anyone from the consultant background here, or anyone from the industry as well, make sure that these independences are either to as a professional from the industry. Make sure that your consultant gives you a kind of a confirmation, a written confirmation that they are independent, directly and indirectly, to get these services done, because most of the times we use this services to create evidences which are submitted in the court of law. So in case if uh, the background and the independence of the professional itself comes into question, then that entire assignment goes for a toss, because then the entire base for the conversation will be in the different tangent. So rather than the evidences and the facts, it will go on the credibility of the testifying professional over there. Engagement evaluation, team composition, engagement letter. I think we guys are smart enough to take care on these terms. So just they have standardized it. As I mentioned, so before these standards were introduced, everything was more on industry practices. So Institute has been kind enough to kind of streamline everything over here. Key elements of engagement letter. So now this engagement letter is significantly different from the internal audit engagement letters and statutory engagement letters. Uh, Contacting professional and client, again, make sure that you are not giving your name for an assignment which you are not doing, or any entering into that practices. God forbid those goes to the regulatory authorities like SFIO or CBI or something. Like they will really take your case even if you are not involved with any of the fraud or anything. So make sure that these details are absolutely correct and pinpoint. Scope of engagement, avoid vague terms. So when I say vague terms, a lot of times it's mentioned that review the documents. Like the scope will mention that the documents the documents need to be reviewed. So this tends to be a lot of disputes, specifically uh, between the clients and the service providers, because uh, when you say that, then the client is bound to challenge you for like literally everything, because you are saying review the document. So it's very specific that, like, let's say there is a procurement fraud, then review all the documents pertaining to procurement of the company. So it's better and advisable to have a bit of specific mentioning, to ensure a healthy completion, timely completion, and like completion without conflict with the client. Clearly define deliverables, specify clear timelines. Lot of times, as we had discussed in the previous case, so where we need to request bank statements from the consortium. So there are 10 banks. So a lot of times, 4 or 5 banks will give the data, other 5 will not give, and eventually the blame will be put on the auditor that like they are not doing it. So it's better that like we will be submitting the deliverable within 20 days of all the bank statement, all the subject to all the bank statement received from all the 10 bankers. So make sure everything is very specifically clarified at the start and subject to amendment as and when required. uh, Data personal, so it should be clearly specified that whatever as per the assignment, that data has to be provided by the client. There should not be any arguments that was client saying that how will I arrange this data, you arrange from your sources, direct, indirect, official, unofficial, etc, etc. Confidentiality, fee details, please make sure, in case anyone doing consulting services or even as a client from your service provider, that whether that includes OPs, taxes, etc. But this is a bit generic, this goes everywhere. So legal jurisdiction, right of termination. Over here in legal jurisdiction, I would want to put a disclaimer: make sure that you have the right jurisdiction in place, because uh, this is not a safety clause, as I mentioned. In case of investigation, it is eventually going to go, let's say, an employee fraud. So it is going to, over here, let's say in Mumbai. So it is going to go to Mumbai jurisdiction. So um, like sometimes these are standard templates and people tend to not make the required amendments. It can create some troubles, from documentation point of view. Team composition, clarify it in your engagement letter, who is going to be the manager on the job, who is going to be the signing authority. Uh, uh, Modes of communication can also be clarified, because a lot of times there are expectation that the update needs to be given to a particular city. So better it gets clarified to avoid any confusion. So these are, I think, like broadly, this is an exhaustive list of pointers which needs to be considered while preparing an engagement letter for a forensic assignment. So yeah, that's about it. Any questions on this? More than happy to kind of answer it. Anyone? All right. Let's move to the next one. Using the work of an expert. This is a bit in similar lines with the standards on auditing, where you have to evaluate the expert, get the understanding of the expert. So whether desirable reputation, qualification, having infrastructure resources, past working experience, conflict and independence, background checks. So now by background checks, we don't mean हमें experts पे investigation करवाना है. It's like we have a word with the expert that please give your documents or something which gives us comfort and kind of authority to take your services. So it's done officially, and there is nothing discreet over here. Ethical conduct, legal appliances. Well, this is a bit of a standard one, so a bit of self-explanatory. But just want to clarify that for the experts, usually these experts are a lot of times into, let's say there is a mining assignment on mining. So we are not expected to have expertise on mining. So we take the work of expert, like in case there is any quantification claims or anything required. So real estate mining. So we tend to appoint the specialist who give uh, the required inputs, their reports, and that can be officially used in the court of law as well. So this is how the documentation is done, because as I mentioned, so I am having a confidentiality clause with the client. So that should have an authority that I can delegate this part to the expert. Once it is delegated, it needs to be again communicated to the author, to the client or the appointing authority that boss, I have appointed this expert. And you can just quickly refer it. I'm putting it on screen for half a minute, that exactly how the written representation can be taken. Basically the letter can be taken from the expert, a kind of an undertaking. We confirm that the management and their immediate leaders are not related, something to do with independence, the employees are qualified, licensed, etc. Information and documents are true, correct, with work shall conduct themselves with ethics and integrity, and they have not been, like the background, there is no investigation, or they have not been under any offense or under any scrutiny with any of the institutions. So again, this is not exhaustive. This is just like, this is how an undertaking is usually taken. What I suggest is, as a kind of a hack, whenever you are taking any such undertaking from someone, you can use a lot of AI tools. They are really helpful, and kind of gives an exhaustive list of things which can be considered over here. So that was 230, a bit straightforward over there. Engaging with agencies. So over here, I'll just narrate the objective, and I'll again open the forum for some discussions here. The objective is to have the required clarity on the terms of the engagement, and the professional is appointed by the agency. When I say agency, I mean the government agencies. That means serious fraud investigation office, or an enforcement director, or maybe an income tax authority, maybe some GST authority. All right, economic offense wing. So this is maybe few of the many agencies. So getting that thing straight, what is this agency? Engaging with agencies, engaging with the, just to put it in simple words, just for something like regulators and overviewers from the government section, to understand the legal and regulatory requirements. And the third objective, to maintain the desirable communication protocols and documentation in relation to the engagement. All right. Before I take it forward and make it kind of a mainstream monologue over here, what do you understand by this? What have you guys come across? When have you guys come across, these types of situations and scenarios? Like, have you seen someone dealing with the agency as a forensic professional? Anyone? Or this is like kind of a new area altogether for you?
New areas are completely.
Okay. All right. So then it will be a fun session, but at least, all right. At least you wanna try, because why I'm saying is, like if you put something, then maybe it will be relatable to the answers given. So, uh, I'll give you an example before I, go on that explanations and examples and everything as per the standard. So let's take an example of this case of Punjab National Bank. All right. So over here, in that case, BDO was appointed to do the review of that Nirav Modi fraud. So Punjab National Bank had appointed BDO India to perform the forensic investigation. BDO completed the work, and so Punjab National, obviously along with the consortium, they submitted the report to the consortium. So now BDO thinks, okay, my job is done. Thank you. I've received the fees, but that's not the case, because once that assignment is submitted, that report is submitted to Punjab National Bank. Now this is assignment of national mandate. So it is very likely that there is it's a significant amount of fraud. So it's going to go to Serious Fraud Investigation Office by central government. There is definitely lots of money laundering transactions. So it is going to go to Enforcement Directorate as well. So these agencies, so they are not going to start the work from the scratch. It's a public domain information that BDO has done the work. So in that case, how it will work is that they will request the engagement team of BDO to kind of submit those reports and assist them to do further, because in the report there will definitely be lots of data limitations based on the work done, etc., etc. So what will happen is that the engagement team in this case of video will be required to provide the required support to, let's say, SFIO or enforcement directorate. So whenever this happens, so once again, as I mentioned, so whenever we do these kind of practices or procedures or provide this support, so there is no standardization. It's just a practice, and whenever the regulators call, we are bound to visit. But these standards are doing is they are helping professionals to have some reference point that even if there is an agency or a regulator, make sure that you perform these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things in order to safeguard yourselves as a professional. So this is one way. And secondly, what happens is this is one of our practical experiences itself, that whenever we give such report to, let's say, SFIO, so I'm saying that the data, the borrower has not provided me books of accounts for these 2 years. So now SFIO, they have significantly more powers and authorities and access to a lot of bigger databases. So they provide us the data. We are supposed to get that review done for SFIO and submit that data. So whenever we are doing these things, what are the aspects which we need to keep in mind? That is what this standard is trying to explain. So like are we getting some flavor exactly what the standard means? Then I will start. Okay, all right. So with this, at least like this background, now let's start, because if I will directly put the pointers, it will just be like more of checkpoints for us. A professional is expected to consider the following pointers when appointed by agencies such as SFIO, CBI, EOW, etc. Engagement letter plus scope of work. It's similar to the previous one, but over here, it has to be specific to that work which is expected. Like additional work what we are doing. In case there are limitations, because a lot of times like the objective is, let's say in case of that DHFL fraud, the objective is to get the review of all those perpetrators and what. But practically speaking, specifically when we are doing assignments with the regulator, it is important to clarify that the report will only include the specific things, and these, let's say, there is one of the line items of asset tracing. So you can very well clarify that asset tracing is not from our infrastructures which we'll be able to do, and subject to that scope we'll be able to cover everything else. So it's better that we clarify. uh, Additional work, this tends to happen because functioning with the regulators is very dynamic. Let's say there's someone, they directly issue summons. So let's say they are issuing summons to the CFO of that borrower. So CFO comes, CFO mentions few names, then very quickly the agency will ask the consulting team, the engagement team, that abhi ye wale areas pe bhi aap kaam chalu karo. So it's better to kind of document, make addendum ELs, or things can go south at any point. Independence, this is a crime. if you are not independent, as I mentioned in the previous one, like if the case comes here, and if you have to kind of put a disclaimer that the independence is not there or something, then you are inviting unnecessary troubles for yourself. Applicable laws and regulations, clarification on team composition. A lot of times the expectations are that a team of 10, 12 people will come, but your budgets allow you a team of 2 or 3. Better to get that clarified. Evidence gathering, confidentiality, and NDA. So whenever you are called by agency, as I had mentioned, to called by the regulator, let's put an example, called by SFIO to provide information. These are the points which ideally one should keep in mind. You can be called for ongoing. So as I mentioned for that case of PNB, so if my report is submitted, then obviously I'm just going as a follow-up. If it is an ongoing, still I've given an interim update, you can still be called, and then parallelly you have to provide the deliverables to all the required agencies as and when requested. Alternatively, as I mentioned, so the agency, again in this example SFIO, so SFIO might send summons to the CFO as well. So this standard will be considered and have to be evaluated from the CFO standpoint as well, CFO or CEO or whatever the case may be. So make sure that these elements are taken into consideration. If someone, this also happens a lot of times, that verbal request is made कि अरे भैया आप कल दोपहर को 12 बजे पहुंच जाइए, like we want to have some discussions. So as a professional, if you are comfortable, you have been visiting, then that's fine, but it's not a crime. You can still request politely that it will be helpful if you can send a written communication. At the time, you may maintain the following records: date of request, investigation officer, details of that officer, information requested, mode of sharing, etc., etc. Have these documents very straight and tight. It can be utilized at any point of time where you cannot even think of. Professional may refrain from providing any opinions. I had mentioned that earlier, like this is not about opinions, this is about facts. So please make sure that always facts are communicated. Whenever you submit something, make sure that you're taking an acknowledgement, and sometimes original work papers are requested. So if an agency asks for those documents, you cannot say I'm not going to give. You are bound to give. It's by court of law. However, make sure that you are retaining, taking authorized photocopies or whatever the case may be, but make sure that you have some version of it for yourself, or else you are again creating troubles, because God forbid that officer changes, something happens, that assignment will be without any underlying work papers. So yeah. Um, what I've done over here is I've listed certain indicative list of agencies. I mentioned few of them. I'll just quickly read out, and in case if you can correlate, it's great. If you want to ask, like how is this agency having any significance or relevance, more than happy to kind of answer on those points. CBI, ED, EOW, SFIO, DGIT, DG for GST, RBI, SEBI, insurance, and IPBI. Anything you're not able to correlate, not understand, more than happy to discuss. So I hope, and I'm assuming that at least there is little bit more insights than what you guys were knowing 10 minutes earlier. I hope. And yeah, all right. Let's move to the next part then. Communication with the stakeholders. So what would be the ideal stakeholders in these assignments for the forensics, according to you? Who will be the stakeholders? So over here, this standard specifically is meant for the consulting professionals that will provide these services. So appointed agency, absolutely. Jaya Krishna, absolutely right. Appointed agency. There will be lots of stakeholders. Come on. Uh, at least by now, you might have realized that it's not only the appointing authority who is answerable. So, in one of the standards, I'm not sure whether we'll be able to cover it today, but in one of the standards coming ahead, it's clarified that although you are being appointed by a particular company, your ultimate uh, authority or making sure is for the court of law. So whenever you are giving a testimony, even if it is against the person who has appointed you, the facts needs to be presented to the court of law. So anyways, objective is to communicate in a process driven manner, ensure that essential matters and significant matters are communicated. So they have kind of again put some bifurcations into essential matters and significant matters. Maintain good etiquette and confidentiality while communicating. All right. So understand and evaluate the requirements from the stakeholders. So let's say a resolution professional. So a resolution professional will need documents, which covers PUFE transactions. I covered that in the previous session. So over here, uh, we are expected as forensic investigators that we review the assignments and give a tabulated update that these many transactions with this much value is under 66, this much is under 43, etc., etc. So it's important to understand that exactly what is the expectation, and accordingly, the investigations can be undertaken. Data scientists, cybersecurity, legal experts, make sure that I mentioned this earlier that like if you're appointing experts, then make sure that the stakeholders are communicated. Communication has to be documented because a lot of times there we have some scenarios where like we are updating to the director, so we think that a senior person is updated, but a lot of times they have a parent or a holding company. So if there is no documentation, it creates a lot of confusion there. There has to be flexibility in the list of stakeholders. Frequency should be updated. And most important, so now considering the type of assignments we are doing. So let's say, there is an issue in the HR payroll department and we have commenced the investigation. Usually HR teams are part of kind of included in the assignments, the HR head. But now while reviewing, we realize that possibly HR head is himself involved, in this fraud. So in such case, we can kind of reevaluate and reconsider that whom you are appointing, because let's say a legal person, a legal head, HR head, and maybe few directors and all, they have a team and they are appointing us. So if we realize that like we are finding evidences against HR itself, then we have to kind of reconsider how it needs to be put across. We can't transparently go and share all the updates because that will kind of disturb the entire objective of the assignment. So yeah, so the standards have taken care of those minor details as well. And the examples over here, like the matters which can be updated, broadly put into essential matters and significant matters, just kind of bucketing of the facts over here. So I'm just putting it on screen. You can quickly just run through and refer it once. Okay, all right then. Let's move to the next part. Uh, so now the next element is into the 300 series. So now 300 series has got to do with execution. So last session was primarily into, like right from planning stage to conclusion stage, how it works. So broadly, it's in the similar lines, planning, evidence documentation, conducting work procedures. What areas which I did not cover in the previous session, that is into conducting interviews and testifying before competent authority. So over here, Practically speaking, these are very dynamic topics. So I'll not be able to cover everything for even these two, 340 and 360 standards. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking up interviews. It's always fun to have that discussion on interviews. So I'll cover up these sections in detail in the next session. Right now, just as a conversation, as you know, sharing insights on how interviews and all we conduct, sharing few personal experiences. So I'll not cover the entire standard. I'll just give a flavor, and after that we can have a quick question answer and close the session. So quickly on the interview part. The interview process, key considerations, conducting and closing interview, interview etiquettes, and how to use that interview data and the like the information in an appropriate manner. Basically in the court of law or any other relevant to the relevant authorities, basically. So this one is primarily into the investigations element. Primarily it gets covered. Sometimes it's covered in the forensic accounting as well. So over here, planning an interview. So usually interviews are taken place after a decent level of work procedures are performed. Based on that, whatever evidences we have gathered, whatever is our assessment, we gather it, we put it as annexures, and then we sit with the specific interview and try to have a discussion. Interview participants usually these are the custodians, and lot of times even if someone has not done a fraud, but if we feel that that person was aware about it, so something like if we have an issue or a suspicion, or kind of if we have kind of tentatively gathered evidences on procurement, but however we see that the junior was also marked on lot of it, so there is a in all likelihood junior has not conducted a fraud, but he was aware. So in such cases, we can also include such individuals in our interview rounds, not for the fraud, but to get to more evidences which are near the fraud. Location of the interview extremely important. It is extremely advisable that if possible it has to be done face to face, because over here lots of your physical expressions, your behaviors are taken into consideration. A lot of times whenever a fixed question is asked, so like interviewees tend to, like, after a point they cannot control, they can lie but they cannot control all their human behavior. So I've seen when there was a case of a diversion and we could clearly see an amount being transferred by vendor into his personal account. So we made him go through certain questions, and then when we show that transaction to him, he actually kind of fainted on the chair, like because of that shock and consequence. So, so if it is done face to face, you will get a more clarity and insight. And in case if that is not logistically viable, then make sure that it's done in a clean environment where there is proper connectivity, and there are no hindrances or kind of network issues over there, or surrounding physical surrounding disturbances. Invitation for an interview. So make sure that you are not saying that please let's schedule an interview after 10 days. That doesn't make sense. Ideally, a notice, if there is some senior person involved, then a notice has to be given. You cannot just step in and like do it. But usually when there are juniors or like some junior has got into, then the pressure tactics are also used to get the interviews scheduled. Note taking and recording, it is done, but please make sure that this is after uh, consulting the interview. You need to kind of make them aware. You cannot do it unofficially. That's as per the code of law, and if done, it can create troubles. Legal advice, whenever we are doing corporate investigations, it is advisable to have a legal person, like either it can be an attorney or general counsel, or maybe a legal head of the entity, either of those, but someone from the legal is advisable. And usually during the interview, the combination is someone a leader from the HR, leader from the legal, uh, and the investigation team are sitting together, so that everything is on record, and if everything as a consultant we are doing independently. Yeah, involvement on HR and compliance team, as I mentioned. And whenever we are conducting interviews, make sure that you have your annexures with you, so whenever you are discussing something, it's always backed by the annexure. So now, what questions does an interviewer ask? What should be the approach? What should be the preparation? So it's a very interesting conversation. So whenever we get a time, we will take a separate session on how the interviews are conducted, how the data for the interview is prepared. So that's how the things pertaining to interview are taken into consideration. And this is the session, the specific standard on 360 testifying before a competent authority. So now this has got lots of nitty gritty. So as I had mentioned over here, so let's take that part in the next session, because there are lots of facets to it, and I think that will be relatively new for a lot of us over here. So we better kind of take it in piece and cover it in the next session along with the remaining sessions. So yeah, so as I mentioned, so a specialized area, uh, reporting quality, reporting results, quality, and testifying before competent. So there's 6 standards, along with practical case studies, which we have been thinking. So that part we will try to cover in the next session. So anyone with questions, anything pertaining to this or something pertaining to forensics, if you want to discuss, ask, more than happy to address it. Anyone? Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go to the series, your presentation series 200 is communication with stakeholder?
Yeah, sure.
No, last one, where you have that safety aspect you have written. Yeah, this one, safety or life-threatening situation. How big it is that, and how to control this situation?
Control. So over here, so basically you are saying not with respect, but like in case if this happens, right?
Yes.
Okay, so over here I will share. So this is also kind of not a frequent thing, but this does happen occasionally because of the stakes involved. So over here, so there was one specific assignment, corporate investigations, and we had to visit a particular plant. So apparently, there were issues in whatever area we would touch, and like entire, like entire team and over there were extremely annoyed with our presence. But we had a management backing. But as far as this line is concerned, like we, as our team, as engagement manager, we were a bit concerned with respect to our safety.
Yes.
So how we handled this part was that everything which we used to do used to be documented. Firstly, whenever there would be plant visits, there would not be anything which we would do with one or two individuals. We'll make sure that there is a driver involved or everyone is there. We would walk along and do things together. Since the day of departure, everything will be on mail, marking copy to everyone involved in the assignment that we are scheduled, including the senior and significantly senior individuals that the team is departing today. Will be reaching the plant. So once you have reached the plant, we will again document mail it that like we have reached the plant and plan to complete this much part. Today 3 p.m. we are going to have discussion with Mr. This over here. So what we used to do is that everything was documented. So in case any life-threatening situation to me or any of my team member happens, no one would dare to do much because everything gets documented that what we are doing during the day. So don't try to kind of evaporate your existence. Try to document it so that that you are creating that evidence trail. So this is one of the methods to make sure that you're doing it. And yeah, if you feel that even if this is beyond control of the basic things which I mentioned, then obviously you have an opportunity to withdraw from the assignment.
Well noted. Thanks.
Sure. Based on the reports, if we further engage to other agency, we need to assist further for these time involved. Okay, yeah. So you have so Jaya Krishna ji. So you have actually kind of you know pressed the painful button over here. So the blunt answer to this is, so whenever there is an assistance involved, so the agencies try to kind of get in touch with the bankers or the creditors, or maybe the company or whomsoever, and try to give us some compensation. Usually it is not a fancy compensation. It is usually like just to cover the costs. Sometimes the agencies themselves make the payment. That is in usually the less likelihood. So they try to create alternate mechanisms for to release the payment based on the stakeholders involved. But lot of times these things go pro bono. uh, so it will you will practically not be compensated. So how we try to address this is that whenever when that there is a national mandate. So as I mentioned about this Punjab National Bank case, so whenever we are submitting the quotes, we tend to create that buffer because that assignment is going to go to the regulators. Everyone is aware of it. So we will create that buffer in our engagement fees itself. So somewhere it gets taken care of. Yeah, Krishna ji. Okay, all right. How to avoid legal court case hearing after giving final report? Uh, this is a bit open, but at least from the limited part, if I can answer this. So basically, this assignments are usually done so that it is taken to the court of law. It is basically the pillars of forensic accounting which I mentioned. So it is about conclusive evidence and evidence which can be presented in the court of law. So whenever you do an investigation, the objective is to have concrete evidences. So uh, I'm not sure how it can be avoided. But so a lot of times, once we submit the reports are then taken to the court of law by their legal team, basically the legal team of the client. So usually we are not involved unless the assignment is of giving a testimony or of expert witness. So if that is not the case, then that part is usually taken care by the legal and compliance team of the client over there. So, but I'm not sure I've answered. So this is what you wanted to understand, Krishnan ji?
Yes, sir.
Acha, okay. All right. Sure. Okay. Chandrasekhar ji is asking whether FAIS is mandatory. So as far as all the CA professionals are concerned, then yes, FAIS is mandatory, applicable from 1st of July 2023. Okay, then we've already run past 3 minutes over the scheduled completion time. So if there is anything, let me know, or else we can wrap up.
Sir, I just want to know whether I missed your first and second session. Is there anything we can recording is available for that?
Recordings allow us some time. We are planning to upload those sessions on YouTube. So hopefully, I'm planning to schedule the next session either on 15th or 16th. So targeting 15th since people will have some time off. So maybe I can try to schedule, or else as per the Friday series, it will go on Friday. So I try to upload those two sessions, including this one, by next week. That's our plan. So if it is happening, so in case you're attending next session, I can share the details with you guys. I'll be putting it mostly by next session. I'll share the link as well for all the 4 sessions together.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. Thanks a lot.
All right. Sure. Okay, then. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for showing some participation.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Very well
In case if you
articulated
guys,
all the matters.
sure, and we'll continue with the balance standard. So hopefully, I'll connect with you guys next in the next session soon. Thanks,
Yes, sir.
thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.